Great to have you gentlemen here. My name is Severin Henderson, and we're doing a video recording for my podcast, Department 3C's podcast, Firecast, and I'm here today with Chief Walcott and Chief Noy. We're going to get into a great conversation about everything that we can think of that has to do with the fire service. We're going to talk about the Black Heroes of Fire, the book that already came out, and he has another one that's getting ready to come out. So without further ado and talking for me, let's get to introduction of both the chiefs and let's start this conversation.
Well, let's start with the senior guy in the room.
Senior.
Is that senior by age or experience?
Just age.
My name is Leslie Noy, retired Deputy Fire Commissioner. Came on the job in 1977, retired in 2010. Pretty much had a colorful career. A lot of fires, a lot of incidents. Rose through the ranks, held every rank. And that's pretty much all I got to say about myself.
Okay. I like that. It sounds like a great introduction. I like colorful.
My name is Dekalb Walcott Jr. I came on through affirmative action November 1978. I came out in the field January 1. First assignment, engine 101. Second assignment, truck 40. When I was sitting in that house for about 6 years. I drove the tiller on the truck. I used to man 2.5, 3-inch lines by myself on the street because we was short, the extra alarm fires. So we did a lot of work during that time frame. I served 31 years on the department. I didn't hold all the ranks. I went from firefighter, engineer, lieutenant, captain, and battalion chief. I served 31 years.
Okay, that's awesome as well. I know you were telling me just for the purposes of video to introduce myself, so I'll do that real quick. I'm Severin Henderson. I'm currently assigned to Squad 1. I have 13 years on the department. I came on August 2009, and I'm still an active member, and I'm really fortunate to be able to sit here with these two giants and get to pick their brains and speak to them. So thank you for allowing me to interview both of you.
Absolutely.
Okay, you're welcome.
Absolutely.
Let's get into the book, because I see you brought the book up. Let's talk about that to start.
Yeah, basically, I brought the book, I brought these poster-sized prints as well. This was the first book that I published. Chief Noy was very instrumental in helping me put this together. I remember, I kept looking at this stuff. I kept looking at this. I said, something's not right, something's not right. So I think the last thing that we did, I went to him and said, take a look at this. What can I do to change this? So Engine 21, Fire Engine Company 21 was in black print, and one of the suggestions was, let's make that gold.
Yeah.
And it bounced right off the page, so that was fantastic. This book, after the fire strike in Chicago, I met a lot of black old-timers in the Chicago Fire Department following the fire strike. A lot of these guys had pictures and stories about Engine 21, along with their own careers as well. And so, these guys are saying, Engine 21 was responsible for the invention of firehouse sliding pole. And, it's like, okay, they must have this mixed up with something else. They're not talking about the firehouse sliding pole, right? But after holding these conversations, I come to realize that is exactly what they were talking about. So I really became very much so overwhelmed with that idea, with the fact that blacks were here in Chicago. They were first black fire company in the nation, December 21st, 1872. And many of the stories that I heard involved heroic events by them, from rescues, some of the fires that they attended and put out, and even some of the racist stories that went on. And one of them in particular may have been Currier and Ives' illustration of Darktown Fire Brigade. So obviously none of us really appreciated that because it never gave a true image of who black people were. So in learning all of this stuff, it was I felt it was my job to collect the data, collect the information, and talk about Engine 21 one day. Now, we all know that how busy being in a firehouse can be. You're drilling, you're training, you're eating, you're resting, getting ready for the next run, that sort of thing. So I wasn't able to accomplish much there. So it wasn't until I retired that I really had the opportunity to sit down and organize my thoughts and material. This year marks the 150th anniversary of Engine 21, which I am very excited about. The reason I'm excited is because all these years in past, I collected not only photographs, documentation, and put together a book, but everything led up to this year to talk about this fire company, to honor them for their outstanding work, their inventions, their spirit de corps, just everything that Engine 21 was about for the black community as representatives and very heroic men. So this was my opportunity to honor them. One of the things that I wanted to do was, in acknowledging them, I've got the names of those first members that I wanted to talk about. So in essence, Engine 21 was made up of a 9-member organization, 9-member company. 2 were white. That was David B. Kenyon, who was the foreman, and then there was Henry Pethiebridge, who was the engineer. Now, the 7 black members, there was an assistant foreman, James E. Porter. There was, he was the assistant foreman, actually technically first black lieutenant. The pipemen were Willie Hawkins and James Johnson. Hose cart drivers were Stephen Payne and George Adams. And the watchman was George Reed. And the stoker was William Watkins. So again, everything that I'm doing this year is to honor this first group of men that came on. Now, we're not, we don't have as a goal to leave anybody out. These members changed over the years as a result of injuries. I don't recall our first line of duty death didn't occur until early 1928 with Engine 19. So none of these members, they came and went on in the changing of the rosters. I have this information, and I have 2 other rosters. One came out approximately 1874, and then the following came out about 1875, 1876. Okay. Now, one of the things that happened on the Chicago Fire Department, Engine 21 was not welcomed originally. Technically, the city wanted to repay Engine 21, or they wanted to repay the black community for their help during and after the Great Chicago Fire. And so the police and the fire department was run by a police and fire board. Really, the police department headed up, oversaw the fire department for the most part. Okay. So as a result of that, these members did not want a black fire company per se. And so as a result, Mayor Medill did not honor any of their wishes. He did not recognize the police and fire board. Actually, Chicago was going through a period of regrouping following the Great Chicago Fire. So as a result, Engine 21 was through an executive order. Now, there's an individual named John Jones who was very instrumental in helping to get Engine 21 on board, helping to get the first black police officer. And he himself became the first Cook County Commissioner, all in 1872. But the idea of having the black fire company Currier Knives, they were the conscious to the white community. They showed blacks as derelicts, misfits, and bumbling idiots, which was not true, of course. Yeah, right. Absolutely. And so because of these things that transpired in their past, because of how hard it was for them, I'm doing this today to honor those members who came on, because if they had not been here, I cannot say that I would ever have come on this job as a result.
Absolutely.
Whites and white administrations had no real history of going out of their way hiring blacks as firemen or policemen. So I kind of tabled my discussion there. And again, this year is Engine 21's 150th anniversary. The establishment date is December 21st, 1872. And the first firehouse location is at 47 Eldridge Court, which is on 9th Street between Wabash and State Street. And today there's an L track in the area of where their first firehouse was.
Okay.
So,
Well, you gave us a great synopsis of the book. I didn't want you to give away too much because we still want people to buy it.
that's right.
But Chief Noy, you said he helped you with the book. Can you talk to us about some of what you did to make the book happen with your contributions?
Well, Dekalb basically put the whole text together. I was like the proofreader and, made some grammatical corrections, things like that. And funny thing is every time I correct something and send the draft back to him, he'll send it back and something that was already correct will be wrong. So I went through like about 10 drafts. And then he had some other folks assist him. We finally got it where it is now, where it's readable and it's a good book and a good history on the first black fire company. When I come on the job, I didn't know that we had a black fire company in the 1800s. I learned all this stuff from Dekalb. And, we come on the job, basically, I came on in 77 and we came on to affirmative action. And that's a long history, a long story behind that as well.
Right.
And the white firefighters, kind of put in my head that, blacks couldn't fight fires. I didn't know anything about Engine 19 and Truck 11, Engine 16. I didn't know anything about that, even though I lived in that area. But I didn't know the history. And when he told me that we had a black fire company in the 1800s, I'm like, what? So I kind of got interested in that. So whatever assistance I can give him, whenever he called on me, I tried to help him as best I could.
And I must admit, he was very helpful, obviously. All I know is, I had a project that I was working on that I needed to finish. And so people like himself, Dr. Christopher Reed from, I'm trying to think of the university he taught at. It's not coming right now. Apologize, Professor Reed. Was it DePaul? No. What's the other university?
Loyola?
Roosevelt.
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 Yes, he taught at Roosevelt. But he has the book Black Chicago, 1833 to 1900.
Okay.
And then I think he published another book following that. But he was very helpful. Ken Little, who was a senior fire alarm operator for the fire department, and he throughout his career as an alarm operator, he collected a lot of history and a lot of data. He was very helpful as well.
Very good resource. He had a bunch of stuff. He put out a couple of books of all the firehouses in the city and the history of them.
That's right.
He's a very, very knowledgeable guy on the fire department.
That's right. What else was I going to say about him? He's a very nice gentleman as well. It took all of this to get this product in. And of course, there still may have been an error here or there. But at the same time, worked very hard in collecting data and information to put it in its current form. And so I was really honored to do such a thing. That's basically where we are with that right now. I got a second book that's coming out.
And that's what I was going to ask you about. What do we have to look forward to in the second book coming?
Well, a lot what I found out with any of these books is, in many cases, people don't like to read. So I've got at least 250 photographs in this second book.
Okay.
I also have somewhere around 100 newspaper articles from the Chicago Tribune and Chicago Defender archives. And these newspaper articles and other documents date back to 1863 up until about 1973, during just prior to the lawsuit that was done here in Chicago by the African American Firefighters League. So I have these newspaper articles that basically talk about the time periods then. As an example, 1863, I think it was the Chicago Tribune, Daily Tribune, where there was a solicitation for blacks to serve during the Civil War that were already located here in Chicago. Approximately 1866, when John Jones, same individual that was responsible for helping Chicago get its first black fire company, as well as plainclothes police officer. This gentleman, he was the Underground Railroad in Chicago. His story is just unbelievable as well. But he was the one that was instrumental in getting all this stuff brought up. So he was another individual that I really wanted to expound on as well. But in these newspaper articles, 1866, one of the articles talked about John Jones wasn't even a per se Cook County Commissioner nor Alderman, state rep, nothing like that. But he went to Springfield and he lobbied against the black laws, and he was able to get those laws stricken and taken off the books in 1866. Now, of course, this follows the Civil War period, of course.
Right.
So there was this a period of Reconstruction, 1866 to 1876. So really, blacks, as far as we're concerned, as far as I'm concerned, blacks did not make gains on the Chicago Fire Department or the police department, or politically speaking, until the catastrophe occurred. That being the October 8th Chicago fire.
Right.
So to me, from what I've analyzed and taken a look at, and I've shared this information with Chief Noy as well, that, you know, many of the gains that we have made we've never really made face value gains. We've made gains as a result of. An example, fire strike, and we were going to talk about that also.
Yeah.
There were 300 black strike breakers that were hired. Well, affirmative action, I don't think we got anywhere close to that in reference to those first couple of classes that came on. And then, of course, later in the early 80s, he was stricken down as a result of a lawsuit that was held in Cleveland,
Right.
where they outlawed quota systems. So today, we still have not met our goals, but that's kind of another story. So, so these newspaper articles, it talks about why support a Jim Crow fire department. That's another story. I found stories that talked about there was a death involving, accident involving Engine 21, where the kids in the neighborhood, when the bell would go off, they would run to the firehouse doors, look in the doors and see the firemen sliding the pole, putting their gear on, jumping on the rigs and hitting the door. Well, at this particular time period, not only did we have access to the fire pole, but, pardon me, David B. Kenyon invented this quick release for his door. So they had a quick release, and the horses, everything went boom, 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 12, 13 seconds out the door. That's pretty quick.
Right.
Well, this little girl couldn't move fast enough from in front of the door, and the horses ran over her, causing her death, which was very unfortunate. That's another article. I think that I talked earlier, I don't want to repeat myself. There were kids in the neighborhood that was interviewed approximately 1888 by a Chicago Tribune newspaper. And in it, they talked about how Engine 21 members were their heroes. They talked about the fire company members, pipemen being salamander-like, crawling under the smoke to get to the fire, and or people that they were rescuing.
Right.
So, pardon me. So we know that 1893, and prior to that Engine 21 was first out the door, and we talked about their statistics. So we have annual reports that are put in every year, and every company has to total out their runs, special duty runs, fires, so on and so forth.
Right.
Well, Engine 21 was at the top, probably top 5 list for who knows how long. Those records are not made available, so I can only exaggerate when I talk about that, but we already know that they hit the door going to fires. We know that they they attended many fires every year, the most out of most companies. I think Les and I talked about some of the rescues that were made. I even have articles where he's been through ladders up to the 3rd floor and pulled people out of windows, and they're working fire and the building collapsed and they followed the building down. I mean, that's pretty horrendous.
Yeah,
so some of these guys were coming out with injuries, you know, a lot of injuries, you know, from broken bones to lacerations and so on. And so, you know, this is what Engine 21 represented. They were almost like Michael Jordan. You know, you can't tell them he can't do something because, you know, he's going to do it anyway, and that's what they did. So, speaking of Michael Jordan, that's what I call him, the Michael Jordan of the fire department. yeah, I'm going to start this. You know, this guy here, he was really tremendous. You know, I just know that, you know, I don't think he ever got as much credit as he deserved it. And if he did, he was modest about it. But, you know, I learned a tremendous amount from him. And so let me address those that wanted to label him as a cheater. He never gave me anything in reference to what was on the test, right? Why would he do that? Why would this man jeopardize his career? For me, I can't pay his bills, right?
Yeah.
So that never transpired. But, you know, he was always a good teacher, being that, you know, we set up, he'd come over to the house, I come where he is, and we take a board and we're doing tactical stuff. And after, he only needed to do it one time and I could get it after that, because here you're filling in the other voids that you know. So he may have touched on some things that I didn't, you know, just because I didn't deal with him every day. But so, you know, everything came up with me as a result of studying under him, because I just learned so much. I mean, so I want give him the opportunity to talk about some of his career on the department as well. Yeah.
Let me see if I can get some out of him, the modest man you say he is. So
I don't know about all that.
Chief Noy, where did you start your career, and kind of how did it go? Did the chance that you had the opportunity to serve at every rank?
Well, when I got out of the academy, I got assigned to Engine 24, which was in Humboldt Park. It was on Division and Western. It was a double engine house with Engine 57. It was Engine 57's house, and Engine 24 used to be on Warren and Campbell, and then they went down to Engine 26 like in the mid-70s. And then because of all the fires in Humboldt Park, they moved me in with double up with Engine 57. We had 7 engines in our battalion.
Okay.
Engine 43 was doubled up with Engine 51. Engine 51 used to be on 50th and State, I believe, and they changed quarters, and they were, and Engine 43 is on Stave right off of Milwaukee Avenue. So we had 7 engines and one hooker ladder in our battalion.
Okay.
And during the mid-70s and just before the strike, 40% of all the arson that occurred in the city occurred in that one battalion.
Oh wow!
So we were running. We was going to 3, 4, 5 fires a day every day. Mm-hmm. So that's why I started my career, and I worked with a great bunch of firefighters. They taught me the job. Whenever we did something, if I did something wrong, they said, "Hey, Les, next time we have a fire like that, here's what you do. You do this, you do that, you do this, you do that." So I got a tremendous amount of respect, and I got indoctrinated the proper way, and I learned a lot. You know, before I got promoted to engineer in 1980, easily I probably went to over 500 fires.
Yeah.
Right, easy.
That's amazing.
So I made engineer, and then I got promoted to lieutenant, and seemed like fires just followed me everywhere I went up the fires, even as a lieutenant.
They did.
Even as an engineer, and then I made captain, and I was a captain of Truck 13 for a while. Then I went became the captain of Engine 108. And Engine 108 is on 4600 North Milwaukee. They never get fired. I go up there, and we start catching fires.
Okay.
Then I made battalion chief, and I was battalion chief for 8.5 years.
Okay.
And almost everywhere I went, you know, I had fires.
Just Fire City. You're the true black cat.
Right. Then I got appointed to DDC, same thing, catch fires. District chief. I became district chief of the 5th district, which is one of the busiest districts in the city, on the south side. Then assistant deputy fire commissioner, I was in charge of the fire suppression and rescue division. Mm-hmm. So I was in charge of all the firehouses and all the fire responses. which kept me up at night. You know, I probably didn't get no more than 2 or 3 hours sleep for 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I got appointed deputy fire commissioner in charge of administrative services. So I went more on the administrative side. And so I had a very, you know, I had a varied experiences and career. To me, I'm a street firefighter. To me, so my whole commitment was in fire suppression. Then when I moved on to administrative services, I had to learn more of the politics of the job and administration of the job.
Right.
So
it sounds like you like the street firefighting a whole lot better than you did the administrative side. Just kind of that's how it goes when it's a fireman's fireman. Just kind of like getting out there, doing it, solving problems on the go, things like that.
Great.
So that sounds amazing. Now, the question I have for you as far as coming up through the ranks, you went from the south side to the north side. You kind of worked citywide, 'cause especially if you say you was a captain at 13 and 108. Where did you like and appreciate the most?
Well, I'm one of the few guys, probably you could say this. I've worked in every firehouse in the city in some capacity. As a firefighter, engineer, lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, deputy district chief. I worked in every firehouse in the city. And I like to go around, even at O'Hare Midway Airport.
Okay.
So I like to kind of diversify myself because you get a chance to work with different guys and you see firefighting from a different perspective. Guys on the west side, firefighters a little different than the south side. Guys on the north side, a little different from the west side. But you work with a lot of different firemen, a lot of different officers, a lot of different chiefs, and you learn so much because, you diversify yourself. When I was a deputy fire commissioner of administrative services, I would, when we promote guys, I would send them to a district that they weren't a firefighter in. The guy in the 5th district, I make him 2nd district relief. Or the guy that's in the 6th district, I make him 4th district relief.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, the next couple of transfer orders, all of those guys would migrate right back to where they came from.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand that. I want to know everything about the fire department. So I worked on every side of town. I worked in every battalion, and like I said, I worked in some capacity in every firehouse, either as a captain, lieutenant, engineer, firefighter, or battalion chief. Yeah. So I picked up a lot of things from I had a lot of great mentors.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer because I have been trying to do the same thing. I used to write down and tick off a mark every different firehouse I went to. And when I first came on, you don't get detail as the candidate. And so guys were like, oh, you're lucky you don't get to go nowhere. And then I was the medic there and I was the only medic for a while. You don't have to go nowhere. And I would say, nah, if that was the case, I could have stayed home. If I just wanted to see one place, I want to explore this entire city. I want to go from everywhere. So I appreciate you. I remember when guys would get promoted and, you watch the orders and you'll see a guy from one area, like you said, from the 5th, go to the 2nd. And then as soon as you get a chance, come right back to where he came from.
Exactly.
And I'm in agreement with you. I'd like to see different places, different areas. That's what's part of the job to me is fun, getting that new experience. And then meeting new people too, even if they not the nicest people. You still get to meet new guys.
Right. Yeah. Plus you learn the city. You learn different topography of the city. Downtown's all high rises. I went downtown as a relief lieutenant. So I learned all about incident command, even before the order was fine-tuned. They put an order together, and the first incident command order, and then we later on went more into detail and more in depth into it. So the exam was being given. I think we studied for the captain's exam. So I knew some incident command questions for the captain's exam. So being a relief lieutenant and being downtown on occasion, everything you do is incident command. So you kind of got a leg up on guys that stayed on the south side, never responded to a high-rise building on a still alarm, and never really implemented incident command because there's not that many high-rises on the south side.
Right.
So, like I said, diversifying your experience and your and where you go and who you work with really prepares you for mobility.
Okay. I like how you answered that question overall, too, because you didn't even give me a specific place. That was the administrative politics side. That was that kind of answer. I like it. I like that a lot. Now, a more straightforward question to both of you. So from the Engine 21 to when you guys came on about 100 years later to where we're at now, just talk to me a little bit about difference and changes in tactics that you saw from when you came on to when you retired, possibly.
That's interesting. Some of our tactics, I think that, and he would be probably a better witness because he had a bigger picture of that stuff than I did. But I know for a fact that when we came on, that improvements were made. So, as an example, we have, we had to come up with strict rules on heavy timber bowstring truss roofs because people were, in the past, people were dying. And, you're trying to fight a fire, either standing under them or standing on top of it. And we were losing people with serious injuries.
Right.
Well, they finally put their foot down on something like that and says, we don't want anybody in this building. We don't want you on that building, on that roof either, because, and we started coming up with other little maneuvers. As an example, I worked on many trucks in the cities, not just engines. And so, I'd encourage my men, hey, look, we're going to put a ladder up here on this building, take a look. I don't want anybody up there. I don't want anybody up there because those roofs fall in so fast. I had Gage Park Bowling Alley fell in on me standing inside. There was an automobile dealership garage at 59th and Western just a year and a half later, and standing on top of that, and that collapsed from structural members that were cracked and weakened, but unbeknownst to us. So, and to add to that, some of the things that, based on what I saw early in my career, some of the things I was involved in early in my career, and in fire prevention as well. I participated in the Fire Prevention Bureau. I kept my men on the street. We're always in and out of buildings. Why? Because I want to know what's in here, so because I may have to come back in here. We found numerous heavy timber bowstring trusses up and down Ashland Avenue that were that had structural defects. So we, in fact, called in the Fire Prevention Bureau or the building department and had those updated. And so, all of this plays a real big role in my eyes as far as what should you be doing prior till, because one day you're probably gonna go back in one of those buildings.
Right.
And for you to sit in the firehouses, you can't sit in a firehouse all day and not go out and take a look around in your fire district to get some idea of what's going on in.
Right.
But I'm gonna turn it over to Les. He's probably rewritten some stuff among some other things. So,
Well, one of the things I could say is before the strike, the equipment was horrendous. All the rigs were put together by duct tape and glue and you name it. My rig, the rig I was on, is 24, was a 75 Ford with a Pierce engine, and whenever we went to the shop or something, we had to switch the rig out. They bring a 1952 Mac as a spare.
Yeah.
Now I was born in 1953, so the rig was older than I was. We used to take wire hanger just to wire the back step to keep it, because we rode on the back step back then. And we had enclosed cabs. Everybody rode on the back step, or either in the
that was an upgrade.
right.
There you go. Right.
So the equipment was bad. Not for the dedication of the firefighters that I work with. I'm sure all over the department. Guys used to spend their own money to try to, keep the equipment, in good shape.
Yeah.
Back then, we didn't have overtime. You worked a holiday, you just worked a holiday. If it fell on your shift, fell on your shift. Every company didn't have a full complement of firefighters. We were very short on officers and engineers. Everybody was acting out, acting Bo in the front seat as a lieutenant, have another guy acting as the engineer. Getting all this overtime and duty availability and all that. We didn't have any of that stuff back then. Plus, we wasn't hardly making any money.
13.5 when I came on.
Right. So as a result, guys did what they had to do. We used to practice three-man extension ladder raises, because most of the time all you're gonna have is 3 guys on the rig.
Yeah.
So we used to drill on that. Leading out, we used to drill, 2 or 3 guys. We used to drill on dropping 3 lines at the same time, because that was the policy, and you know, you didn't have the manpower. So a lot of things have evolved. Then after the strike, you know, we started getting new equipment and better pay and better benefits and so forth. And then the technology kind of got a lot better. We started getting a little more specific in job duties and stuff. You know, they created squads for every district. Every district had a rescue squad at one time. You know, they were abolished, you know, later on down the road. But you know, the fire department really involved. The equipment really got good. You know, the rigs were getting newer and more sophisticated. You could do more with them. Even our turnout gear. Because back then, you know, guy go to Sears and get a pair of blue khakis, right? and a white shirt, and the fire coat was made out of rubber, you know. So we started getting the Nomex fire coats, and you know, the helmets were plastic. Then we started getting the leather Carnes helmets with a little more reinforcement. So things that just got better and evolved, and the main thing was it made it safe for the firefighters.
Okay. That I love, me personally, I love having these conversations like that, kind of see where we came from and where we're at now. And I'm not gonna tell a lie here, but we still complain about some of the same things and say, well, we should have this and we should have that, we should have the other. But to kind of take it into perspective and look at where we came from, especially with the strike and what we have now and stuff that's contractually binding is a whole lot better. So we have to, again, thank you guys for your service to help us to even get there and get to that point. Another part that we can talk about, and if we can edit and take out if you want, we just recently had the abolishment of Appendix G. And you guys know
the consent decree.
The consent decree, right. And you guys know about that. Can you speak to me just a small bit about that, please?
Well, when Dekalb and I come on the list, we took the test in 1973, and we didn't get hired to 77. Richard J. Daley was the mayor during that period, and he didn't hire us because he didn't like the federal government telling him who he could hire, who he couldn't hire. Right. And back then they had what they call revenue sharing funds that the federal government would give to cities. I think Chicago received like $90 million back then. So the federal government said, well, if you don't diversify your department and hire hire as representative of the makeup of your city, then we're gonna withhold our revenue sharing funds. So he didn't do it, and they withheld it. And so he went to Continental Bank and borrowed the $90 million every year to balance the budget. So he passed away in December of '76, and the first class off that list got hired in February of '77 because Belanger was the mayor at that point, and Belanger didn't have the juice to go borrow the money. So he said, "Okay, we get this money." So he relinquished. That lawsuit was United States against City of Chicago, and we got hired through affirmative action. I was 222 on the list, so I would have, right. So a lot of
I was 832.
Right. So a lot of us, we would have got hired anyway, right. Even though they'd gone and ranked.
Well, let me stop you there. I said that, I know other people have said that too, but all I know is I can't say I would have gotten hired. Why? Because the city of Chicago did not make it a habit of hiring blacks. They didn't care where you was at on the list. So I'm saying that. I don't know if I would have got hired or not, just based on that pretense alone. They did not have a habit of hiring blacks on the fire department. But you're welcome to your own opinion. Right,
yeah, but that lawsuit is what established affirmative action for hiring purposes.
Sure.
And plus, guys were in Vietnam War, and you get veterans points. So a lot of guys got moved up to veterans points as well. But that lawsuit is what established hiring using affirmative action. After the strike, the Justice Department and Richard Albright was the fire commissioner at the time, and he enjoined a settlement with the Justice Department. The settlement is Albright versus City of Chicago, and the consent decree covered promotions only. It didn't cover hire. So that original lawsuit that we got hired under, when they entered into the consent decree, it didn't cover hires anymore. It only covers promotion. It started with promotions off the 1979 engineer and lieutenant's list. And that consent decree went from 1980 all the way till this year, when they finally disbanded it
Right.
or did away with it. But for some reason, guys think that that consent decree covered hiring. It only covers promotions.
Okay.
And it covers promotions in the future until they agree to take that consent decree down. Now, Appendix G in the contract is a goal.
Okay.
And if you read it, it'll say in numerous paragraphs that it's a goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a goal of 45%. You know, and it's not a contract because there are no specific dates. It don't say X amount of date.
Right.
No, it just says it's a goal. And the goal is, it says, as is reasonably achievable and as is reasonably possible.
Okay.
Those are the dates.
Yeah, so
So it doesn't have any teeth because there's no dates.
Right.
So you can't use it for hiring.
right, I got you. Okay.
And to get back to the consent decree, when I was Deputy Administrative Services, you know, we did all the hiring and we get all the candidates, the list from DHR, and we do all the processing and everything. And what I found out is whenever I got ready to promote with the fire commissioner's approval, because of some of the arbitration awards that the union won, whenever we use affirmative action or merit, we have to go and promote on the last promotional order from the eligibility list in rank order to
Right.
pick up everybody that got passed over.
Right, okay.
So it got to the point where the consent decree wasn't effective because by the time we get down to the rank order list, it's only like a couple of promotional orders behind the people who would have gotten promoted using affirmative action. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't really effective because now all those promotions are pretty much similar. The rank order promotions that we were mandated to make because of the arbitration award and the promotions we made as a result of affirmative action the orders were kind of right next to each other. Mm-hmm. So even though all the guys are rank order off the last promotional list to satisfy the arbitration, you still pick up the same guys. So it became ineffective at some point.
Right, I can understand that. Okay. Well, that's enough about that subject. Let's kind of finish it here. Let's have one last discussion about the Engine 21, the 150th year anniversary. Again, have to thank you gentlemen for coming and sitting down and having this conversation. We actually want to have more of them in these same kind of conversations. So let's talk about that one more time and then how we can do better, like especially people in my generation, generations under me, how we can do better for the service and the promotion of, so we can continue to have Black Heroes of Fire.
Certainly. Well, first of all, let me say that because when I left the job, my son had a year on the job. So a lot of this was influenced by my love for him being on the job, that I wanted to give him a positive mental attitude about who he was and what he was doing. Now, you know, he came up under myself and my friends. His whole goal in the whole life, he didn't have no other goal, was to be a fireman.
Right.
If he could do that, wasn't no sense in living, right? And that's just the bottom line with him.
Yeah.
But Black Heroes of Fire, that was kind of a bold introduction. I've had people ask me, well, why did you name it that? In the book I put in because it best describes a great group of men that I'm talking about, which was Engine 21. And so for us, everything goes back to that point because, you know, this is on-the-job training. Either you got courage or you don't. Either you're willing to do your job or you're not. Either you're willing to take that hose line in that building and take that beating or you're not. And so there's a dividing line there. And so these first guys that came on, you know, it's unbelievable the conditions that they probably worked under.
Right.
Hell, you know, he talked about the rigs and how bad they were. They didn't have no enclosed cabs either, among a whole lot of other things, right? So, and we know Chicago didn't just start getting bad winters last week, either, and Cleveland either, for that matter.
Not at all.
But these are just many of these guys who were Civil War vets. I asked Professor Reed, I said, who's the real person that needs to be recognized? He said the Civil War vets. They were life givers, and not only were they life givers, they rescued our people from obscurity of where we came from. At the same time, these gentlemen had a fierce will to live and be free. So if this was an opportunity for them, they took full advantage of it. I mean, here, you come into a system that does not want you to be there. You know, you're taking our jobs, long list of other negative inclinations. You know, you go to a bar, read articles that a couple of guys went to a bar downtown to purchase drinks, and the bartender refused to serve them. You know, and there a fight ensued. All this stuff was published in the newspaper. So, you know, they went over and beyond the call of duty. Just like Les had mentioned earlier, you know, I can remember going to 2-3 fires some days. You know, so tired. You know, last run is still in box at 6 in the morning. Hell, I didn't get back till 1:30, and now I get awakened by another still in box right around the corner from the firehouse with deaths involved. Yeah. So, you know, it's a very challenging job. It being on the job training, you more or less, when you're in the academy, you're given, how do I put this? I say that, you know, it's like reading a book. Reading a book is just going to give you, it don't give you the practical side to it. It just gives you the books. It gives you the book information. Yeah. You know, hydraulics, that brand new engine over there pump 1,500 gallons a minute. Yeah. But if it leaks 2 years later and it's got some other issues, you may not get 1,500 out of there, right? Right. So, you know, instead of pumping at 120, you might have to kick it up a little bit more to compensate for the leaks, whatever, however. But I'm saying, firefighting is an on-the-job training situation. You're given spoon-fed in the academy, but when you come out to the real-life situation, that's where you earn your money. It's no longer drilling now; it's throwdown time. So what we found is that a lot of people avoid for fear of, but I found that the more you do it, the more relaxed you get with it, and the better understanding. I've been encouraged to, not to talk about myself more so than anything, but I was encouraged to be, drive the Chief. I don't want to drive the Chief. You know, I want to learn the job. I want to do fire duty. I don't want to drive the Chief. You kind of get stuck in them spots, right? Yeah. Also, you know, it's your turn to cook. Well, I'm not a very good cook. I don't think you want me to cook. Well, they didn't figure it out the hard way, right? Because one of the guys played a joke, and I made chili one day. And then the one package of chili mix I put in was all it needed. This guy said, nah, this thing says 2. You didn't read that? Gotta put 2 in there. Well, I said, they told me, don't worry about it. You won't be cooking no more. Right? So those things, Chicago, I mean, fighting fires is OJT. You got to go to them, you got to do them to learn it. And so Engine 21, they went over and beyond. You know, there was one black fire company for 72 years. Yeah. 1943, Engine 16 came on board. I asked a gentleman, an older guy, I asked Gordon Grand Prix, who's passed away a couple of years ago. He says, Mr. Grand Prix, why did they hire blacks in the 40s and early 50s on the fire department? He said, because white veterans found better paying jobs elsewhere. And so they broke in and hired guys that came out of the war that were black who couldn't find them better paying jobs. They hired them on the fire department. Plus, our community was asking for them. I think so, you know, maybe I'm guessing here. Let's go to 1950. It was probably around 800,000 blacks in Chicago. And I'm just guessing off the top of my head because our numbers have constantly moved up. They've gone as... between 1910 and 1920 during the First World War. I think over 100,000 blacks came into Chicago looking for better paying jobs, trying to get out of the South and so on and so forth. So, you know, what I want people to realize and understand is that, you know, just like my son, you know, this is a calculated job. This is a job that you have to want to be a part of. You have to study this. There's a lot of work you got to do before you even get to this job. Yeah. You know, you know, you have to exercise. You have to be in very good condition all the time. You know, your skill level, your attention span has to always be on point. You know, you can't come to work and miss runs. You know, you can't come to the firehouse late. You can't be out of uniform. It's just a lot of. We represent the Chicago Fire Department. We, you know, if you don't, you know, you're expected to. You're a reflection of the community.
Right.
Basically, you're a reflection of the community, and your shoes should be shined, your pants should be pressed, and your shirt should be in order, and you should be respectful to the public, irregardless of whatever community that you serve. But Engine 21, the sliding pole, being top 5 fire companies for a number of years. Les and I talked also. You know, it's our estimation and guesstimation. Who really knows? That Engine 21 probably, as a fire company, probably had more rescues than any other company in Chicago. But Curry and I felt that they weren't worthy of the job. Black men nor black firemen were worthy of the job. So we know of inventors. Garrett, who invented the Morgan Garrett, he invented the gas mask.
Stoplight.
And the stoplight.
Yep.
This same gentleman I read recently went to a coal mining accident and rescued people. And he may have been in the Cleveland area, maybe in West Virginia. And never given his just due for what he did. There was a gentleman who, and his name evades me, he created what he called a fire escape ladder. And it looked like it was a metal device that had a ladder that would extend in this fashion from a base.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, that looks like an aerial ladder in most cases. But of course they had different names. Everybody's trying to get on point and figure out, you know, what do we call this? Okay, I'll call it this right now. And over the years, it has evolved and changed. Another gentleman invented the sprinkler system, fire extinguishers, you know. They call it a fire extinguisher. Today it's a sprinkler system.
Right.
So this is 1872 when all this has transpired, up to the gas mask of 1914, 15, 16. But I don't know, you know, there's some guys that can crawl under that smoke, take that beat, know how to put their face up to the pipe and practice to do so good. You know, they can't use the pipe.
They're cheaters. Back then.
You know, that too.
Right. You know, one thing, I don't mean to cut you off, but one thing that was, when you asked the question earlier about the equipment, the SCBA, the self-contained breathing apparatus, was one of the greatest inventions. When we come on the job, nobody had masks.
Right.
And our class was the first class to start training on masks. So they started retrofitting all the rigs, put brackets on for the SCBA. But we didn't have a mandatory SCBA order until 1986. So for the most part, you know, all these guys prior to that was fighting these fires without masks. I must have gone to hundreds of fires without a mask. I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think I really started wearing a mask till I was like a lieutenant for like 3 or 4 years. But these guys on Engine 21 and guys after them before the mandatory mask order, could you imagine, you know, how many fires they went to, breathing all that, you know?
Not a civil.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I can't imagine it at all.
Right. And as a result of SCBA, the lifespan of a firefighter has increased.
Yeah.
Because when I come on the job, I think they say the average fireman, when he retired, he lived 18 months.
Yep. If that long.
Right. And I know guys that retired and never got a pension check because they died within 30 days,
That's
within
crazy.
45 days later. So the invention or the adoption of the SCBA for Chicago Fire Department really was a tremendous and monumental kind of a thing to help save lives and extend the life and the safety of the firefighters.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. I'm sure you gentlemen have seen the video, the modern room versus the legacy room, and then it's the old school room with old building materials. It takes forever to get going. And then the new room with all the plastics and paint and everything else, it goes like that.
Right.
So it's a whole different game. Yep.
Now here, before we conclude, your story is very interesting. I would really like you to touch on that a little bit, you know, because you're from Cleveland, is that right?
That is correct.
Let's talk about you a little. Let's end this story on you.
Okay. Just for me, I am from Cleveland. I'm born and raised, and I like the fire truck, because I didn't know it was a difference between the engine and truck like everybody else doesn't know. It came to my school one day. I got to get on the engine and yell through the microphone, "Hey, Ma, do you hear me?" And when I saw her later that day, I'm like, "Did you hear me?" She's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Oh, I was on the mic yelling." And she thought it was the funniest thing ever. But just when those guys came to my school that day and I got to get on the apparatus and just look and the smell and everything, it was just like, yeah, this is it. So fast forward later to life, Cleveland did not give a test when I was eligible to take it at the time. I was 17, you had to be 18 to take the test. But I still got that brochure and read it, and I remember I said, I'm going to make $34,331.29. I still remember that now, because I'm going to work one day on, I'm going to work 2 days off, and this is what I'm going to do with my life. I got it. It's all wrapped up. So my dad, he was alive at the time. He got in touch with some firefighters that he knew. They came and they talked to me, and they said, well, just because Cleveland isn't giving this test doesn't mean, that's it. You can go anywhere. And that's kind of when the countrywide tour started. I went everywhere in the country taking tests. I went to Atlanta. Houston was on the list. Washington, D.C. was somewhere I went. I was even getting ready to go to Hawaii and take the test there. I got blessed to get hooked up with a gentleman, Lloyd Knowles. He was a captain in Cleveland, and he actually moved out here to, what's that, begin with an R. Not Romeoville, Richardson Park. And he was a chief out there for a little while before he passed away. But he gave me my first part-time job after I talked to the other guys, and they told me kind of what to get, like get your EMT, just get your firefighter too, start building up their resume. And like I said, I just went all over the country, took tests. Chicago, I took it in 06, 09. I had gotten a full-time job. But I woke up the same morning that I was supposed to take my lieutenant promotional for East Cleveland, and I had an interest card from Chicago. Met up with all the guys. I'm like, hey, I got this interest card. Y'all took the test with me. Some of y'all get, nope, that means you go. See you later. And I just filled it out. I came back every time they told me to come back. I either caught the mega bus, I drove, Greyhound, Amtrak. I couldn't afford the plane because I just couldn't afford it. But every time they asked for something, I brought it back, and here I am. So
that's great stuff.
Great
now,
story.
Weren't you a policeman?
I went to the police academy from my full-time job in the city of East Cleveland because in Ohio, I wanted to do arson investigation. And in order to do arson investigation, you had to have your police commission. So I did go to police academy. I passed. I actually got a group award from the police academy for an investigation. They asked me multiple times, you think about switching over? I said, do I got to write tickets? They said, yeah, you got to write tickets. Then, no, I don't really. Because I don't have that part where you got to go around and tell on people. I don't have that part. I love the investigation, but not that.
I'll conclude here with my conversation.
Sure.
I just find that, and the three of us that are sitting here, we were all very passionate about being successful in life. And just for me, obviously, my mother told me about the policemen having a test. Mom not taking that test. I hurt somebody because they think I would be a pushover. Mm-hmm. And so she said, well, the firemen are having a test. I said, I'll take that, unbeknownst to me. But, I've always been a determined individual. I prayed one night, I was about 18 years old, in bed. I asked God, I need a job, pay me a lot of money. At least I need an insurance for myself, and I need to be able to opportunity to help my family out if they need me. Mm-hmm. And I've done that. And so I'm grateful. But we're all very passionate about
still doing
this
that
world. Yes,
yep,
absolutely.
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 Well, my sister bet me $20 that I couldn't pass the firefighter's test. And this is not my older sister, but my sister, she's a year and a half older than she passed away in 1979. But she bet me $20. We were sitting watching TV, and they was announcing the test. This is 1973, and they showed the obstacle course, everything you have to do. So he said, I bet you $20 you couldn't pass that test. I said, bet. So we did the bet. Mm-hmm. And so I finally got on the job, and she passed away in 1979. I was still a firefighter at the time. And she never gave me my $20.
Oh man! But she saw you make it. So
Right.
So as I went through the ranks and everything, my brothers and sisters, her nickname was Dee Dee. My brothers and sisters said, "Boy, Dee Dee be awful proud of you."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, but I'm still looking for my $20." So that's how I got into the fire service.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I don't think we can end on anything better than that. So, with all that being said, again, thank you for this time and this opportunity. It's truly the pleasure is all mine, and we have to do this again. Talk some more history.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for allowing us to be here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.